council meeting to order. Start with the roll call.
Present this evening, Monday, April 10th, 2023, are Mayor C. Holland Purdue III and Vice Mayor Billy W. Stockton. Council members A. Ralph Casey, David K. Clements, J. Tyler Lee, and Mark H. Newbill. Also participating this evening are staff members as noted.
We now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move to our special items. The first, we have the Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation. And if the ladies from DSS will come over to the podium. How y'all doing? Good. Y'all ready? Okay. All right. Whereas in federal fiscal year 2021, 3.9 million reports were made to Child Protective Services. And whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas our children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of the town of Rocky Mount. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now, therefore, I, C. Holland Purdue III, Mayor of the town of Rocky Mount, do hereby proclaim April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Rocky Mount, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. And I present these wonderful ladies here.
Okay. Mayor, do you want them to tell us about their event coming up? You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I can. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to do that. But yes, on April 22nd, we are having an event in our parking lot at Social Services. It's from 11 to 4. We will have some food vendors there, ice cream. There's going to be a lot of different games, carnival games for kids to play. Those games will be free. We'll have a bouncy house that will be free for children as well. We will be handing out some different flyers about how to report child abuse and some of the things that our agency does for the community. And we'll also have some other vendors there. I have a mobile boutique coming and some vendors that sell candles and other little things like jewelry and stuff like that. So it should be a really fun time. Also, the fire department and the sheriff's office and the Rocky Mount Police Department will be there too with activities for kids. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the folks that may not know, where is your location?
It's at 120 East Court Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have the 150th Anniversary History Highlight. Miss Linda Stanley will be speaking.
Oh, there she is.
So I wrote down what I was going to say so I can really say something and not talk a whole lot. Of course, we're calling attention to Rocky Mount's history during the town's 150th year of existence and want to speak just a little bit about the historic Tanyard Cemetery. It's on Tanyard Road, of course, and surrounded by National Guard Armory property today. We don't know how many people are buried there and never will. However, the Historical Society's just completed a booklet with 59 documented burials. I can douse and find many more people there, and I can find that they're men or women, but of course I don't know their names. The cemetery, of course, started as a Hill family graveyard in the mid-1700s. The site at that time was part of a 300-acre land grant secured by our early settler, Robert Hill. You'll recall that his Indian fort, fortified blockhouse, ruins are on the grounds of the Christian Heritage Academy. The Historical Society looks after that as well. The first burial in this cemetery was one of Robert Hill's adult sons. He was killed by an Indian's arrow, said to have been shot from the vicinity of Bald Knob. He was buried near where he fell. The distance at the time through virtual wilderness was a long way out to where the fort is today. The son's name and burial spot have been lost to history. Robert Hill himself would be buried in the graveyard in 1777, probably near this adult son. Hill family members and descendants encompassing the Bernards would continue to be buried there, many patriots among them. Hill's son Thomas was a Revolutionary War soldier and later a gentleman justice when Franklin County was formed. Walter Bernard married into the family and himself a Revolutionary War soldier, and of course he became a judge. There was also veterans of the War of 1812 and the War between the states. We say in our booklet that separate books could be written about many of these people buried there because many of them provided the very fabric of our county and our town. Of course, many names are well known, some of the ones I've mentioned and some others. But I just wanted to mention the grave of a 7-year-old boy who's there. He died from measles. And if you've been there, you've seen the grave that's behind an ornate iron fence. It's impossible to access, but we managed to get through it. You can't get into it, but we do manage to keep it clean. His name was George Solomon Craft, the son of Thomas Shea and Susan Solomon Craft. He died in 1865. His father was first a teacher, then a county jailer. He was paid for transporting prisoners and supplies during the war between the states. He owned a stage line, and he was paid $6 a seat by the government to take people between Rocky Mountain, Danville, and Museville. That's about $110 today. $6 in those days was a lot of money as well. Mr. Craft also had a mail carrying business. He had a contract in 1864. So by all standards, he was raking in the money. But soon after the young George died, the family moved away. Lots of stories, lots of things to be told, and I hope we can enlarge on them at some point. Tanyard Cemetery today is maintained by the Historical Society with the help of the Sheriff's Department inmate workforce. It's visited by many travelers. We're actually shocked at how many people come trying to find it. Seems like the hills are related to a lot of people. We receive a small donation annually from a Richmond Sons of the American Revolutions group to help buy Quikrete and things like that. Otherwise, it's on us. There's a huge need for a sign there to properly mark this historic cemetery. So I brought you guys a gift. I brought a copy of our book, which we actually sell for money, but I'm going to give you all a copy to kind of keep the cemetery at the forefront of your mind as we celebrate the year and celebrate history. So I brought you a book.
All right, thank you.
I'll also probably say don't read it till you go home.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Save Mr. Mullins for this. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Next, we will move to the 2022 Gold Award for Excellence in Waterworks Operations and Performance. Mr. Wood will present.
So the Waterworks or Water Department has received
from the Department of Health. Each year, the Department of Health looks at a lot of different criterion for the water, different water supply companies, whether they're meeting all the requirements and regulations at the state and federal level, and a lot of other, I don't even know all the things that they measure, but they look at a lot of things that the water systems are doing, and they issue awards. The awards can be, some water systems don't get an award, and then if you get an award, they can be at different levels. The Gold Award, Kevin, is the highest one, right? Gold Award is what our department received, and that is the highest award. They've gotten it for this year for 2022. I know they got it last year when I was here, and I think it's something they get on a regular basis. There were 92 awards issued by the Department of Health this year, and there's a lot more than 92 water systems in Virginia, so obviously not everybody gets the award. I think Kevin was lucky. He was happy the other day. He got to take almost everybody, right? Almost everybody from the department was able to go to the award ceremony in Roanoke. It was close by this year, so they got to go to the award ceremony last week and receive the award in person. But it's just more evidence, we all know this, that they do a great job, but it's more evidence even from an independent source that's looking at it, telling us that they're doing a great job with the water system. Anything else I need to add?
We've been getting either silver, bronze, or gold since 2010.
Okay.
Well, good. Congratulations again. We will now move to the public hearing for franchise agreement with Cox Communications, and we have no one signed up to speak, no citizens signed up to speak, so we'll move to Mr. Wood for the presentation of the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. So currently in Rocky Mount, there are a number of options for internet and cable TV. There's dish options and other things. Shentel is what's called the incumbent provider, which means that they have lines in the ground and in the air. They were the original provider. I'm sure they had a different name back in the day, but originally that was the company that had a franchise, which is essentially permission from the town to offer cable TV services. Those companies, of course, have all now also moved into internet. In most cases, even in big cities, you'll find a lot of times that there's really only one incumbent provider because the startup cost to put lines in the ground and hang the lines on the poles is pretty high. We're lucky that Cox Communications reached out to us and said that they would like to offer service in Rocky Mount. They contacted me last fall sometime, and so we started having a conversation about what the franchise agreement would look like. The kind of the big factor that we have to make sure that we comply with is that the franchise agreement with Shentel says that it's a non-exclusive agreement, which means that we can sign another agreement with someone else, but the agreement has to be more or less the same as far as we can't give somebody a better deal than what Shentel received. And so it's sort of a most favored nations type clause in the agreement. So we've been negotiating back and forth with Cox Communications for the past 6 months or so, and have finally reached an agreement that the town and Cox are happy with. The next step, if council would like to move forward, we're having the public hearing so that if there is anyone that wants to speak, they can. And then depending on what happens with any of those speakers, if there are any, council can then make a decision as to whether you want to approve the agreement. There's a resolution in your packet that by adopting that resolution, that would approve the agreement. And once that's done, then Cox could actually start to offer service once they construct the system. We've got someone from Cox. Oh, there you are. Right, sorry. Do you want to have him say a few words, Holland?
If you'd like to speak, you're welcome to.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Barrett Stork. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Cox Communications. Very excited to be here tonight, and thank you to the town manager who's been working with us on this agreement over the past several months. Most folks know about Cox Communications, but just to give you a quick background, I'll be very brief. We actually got our roots started back in 1898 when James M. Cox bought his first newspaper, the Dayton Evening News. We went on from there to actually get involved in different industries, but that's how we got our name. It's still a family-owned, privately held company. That is why Cox Communications, that's how we got our name today. We are the largest privately held, family-owned broadband provider in the country. In fact, our fourth generation leader of the company is Alex Taylor as the CEO. He is the great-great-grandson of our founder, James M. Cox. We currently operate in 19 states. We've been providing services in the Commonwealth for more than 45 years. In addition to cable television, as the town manager mentioned, we also offer broadband services. We offer telephone and now mobile telephone services to our customers, as well as home automation services. We also offer a number of commercial services. There's a long list of things that we can provide to the companies here and the businesses that are operating here in the town. We are hoping that over the next 2 years or so, we'll get done with all the work to build out in the town. It takes a little bit of time, as the town manager said. There's going to be a lot of design work. You're going to see folks from our company out in the neighborhoods doing a lot of measurements, checking poles, seeing where we can provide services, how we can build our network, getting easements, pole attachment approvals, things of that nature. So it takes a long time. It's a marathon. It's not necessarily a sprint. But as neighborhoods come online, we'll be offering services. So it won't take the full 2 years. 2 years is really what we're looking at for the full build out in the town. One of the other great things about being a family-owned company is that we believe, and the family believes, that we should be part of the communities we serve. So you'll actually, we have a number of our employees who live in the town right now. We're going to go meet one right after this event to celebrate, hopefully. And what we do is we like to provide services through volunteer time. Every employee gets 16 hours of paid volunteer time to go support an organization of their choice. We've also we do a lot of contributions to local organizations. Last year, $750,000 we contributed to local organizations here in Virginia. And actually tonight, we have a grant that's still open until midnight, Ashley, I believe. Ashley Dugan's also on our team. She's here locally on our Government Affairs team. For teachers, we have Education Heroes. We're providing $1,000 grants to numerous teachers around the Commonwealth that are in our footprint to try and help make sure they've got what they need in their classrooms to be able to provide services or to be able to educate their students. But with that, as the town manager said, this is a non-exclusive video franchise agreement that allows us to come in, build, operate, and maintain our network. And we're very excited to be here. I personally am very excited to be here because this is one of the first times we've actually come into a brand new locality. And we're looking forward to being a provider of choice for all of your residents.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. All right. Any comments by council?
Question. All right, now, the question I have, I think I have a question. Now, if you should happen to come into the area, would you be sending out flyers to the local people? And would you be comparing your rates to the existing company right now?
Sure. To answer the first question, yep, we'll be doing a lot of marketing to local residents, both pre-construction and then after construction, to try and make sure they know about the services we offer. I don't know what the incumbent offers as far as their pricing. We try to keep our pricing consistent across the Commonwealth, actually, to make sure that folks are treated the same way everywhere. Sometimes those vary slightly based on the broadcasters that we are providing in different areas based on agreements for those that we have to carry. But for the most part, our prices are consistent around the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to proceed forward with the contract that's been presented.
Second.
The adoption of the
And the
resolution.
adoption of the resolution, correct.
So we have
Second.
a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll move to the approval of the consent agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at that.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve?
Second.
And I have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move to the purchase of 3 police department vehicles. Mr. Wood will present.
This item, normally we would wait until the new budget year starts to purchase vehicles, but we have the items in the proposed budget. We also have a grant that, from what we've been told, we will be receiving with some additional money for the police department that will help pay for 2 of the 3 vehicles. So what we're asking council to do is to approve the purchase of the vehicles because given the fact that I think almost every locality in Virginia has a July 1 budget and a lot of the law enforcement agencies in the state are also about to receive this grant that we're going to receive, it's going to get even harder to find vehicles, which is already difficult. And so Chief Young approached me about this and I thought it was a good idea to bring it to council to ask if if council could pre-approve the purchase of the 3 vehicles, and that way we could go ahead and get them. Last I heard from him on Friday, and I don't think it's changed since then, but there were actually 3 vehicles available that would fit the needs that we have, and so they are available right now. We think there's a good chance they won't be available much longer once all this money gets released.
And Chief Young is also here to answer any questions.
Are these new or used vehicles?
Is all the vehicles SUVs now?
Yes, sir.
Any other,
Motion to approve the request.
have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion?
Are they already outfitted, or we have to outfit them once they get here?
We'll have to update them. Just quick to follow on the, real quick. Under American Rescue Plan Act, every $60 million was divided across the state of Virginia to, for law enforcement agencies. They're going to police department, sheriff's offices. And on May 11th, all that funding will be approved. If any of you have walked on a car lot, you know how difficult it is to find a car right now, and especially even probably more so in government, because they don't want to give those incentives because they have civilians that want to purchase those vehicles. I've been able to call around to some of our folks under the state contract, and I've been able to find one Chevy, one Dodge, and one Ford on the lot. So we're going to have a little bit of a mixture, but not a big deal. We'll be able to upfit those vehicles, but they are on the lot today, and they are under state contract. So all we're asking is to spend the money in advance of everyone else getting funded on May 11th. So hopefully we'll get ahead of everyone.
And the grant funding, Chief's already checked into the grant funding. They allow us to reimburse ourselves if we spend money ahead of time.
ARPA specifically states that the money can be used for regular police vehicles, no armored vehicles, things like that, but regular police vehicles. And we can go ahead and spend now and then be reimbursed when the grant's funded.
Thank you, Chief. Does that strike any discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move to the resolution regarding collection of delinquent accounts. Mr. Wood will present.
This is an item that our finance officer would likely normally present, but he couldn't be here, as everyone knows tonight. Under state law, towns and other localities are allowed to use collection companies or attorneys. There's different people that do this kind of work to collect delinquent accounts, whether it's utilities or taxes or other monies that are owed to the town. In order to do that, there has to be a resolution adopted by the governing body to say that we're going to do that. And so the resolution you have in front of you simply states that under state law, following state law, we will use that process to do collections on delinquent accounts. And it's another tool that we can use to try to help recover money that is owed to the town.
I'll make a motion to proceed.
A motion to proceed on the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have the presentation of the Town of Rocky Mount proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. Mr. Wood will present.
Okay. It's budget season again. Some of you were not here last year, and just for a refresher for everyone, on the budget format, let me talk about the schedule first. We've got other meetings coming up, and I'll run down that list after this, but tonight is really just a kind of a high-level overview to get everybody familiar with what's in the budget. We'll give you copies of the budget tonight so that you can start studying those for the meetings that we have scheduled next week. One thing that people see in the budget that's not something you look at every day, or even if people are used to accounting for private businesses, they don't see this all the time, but fund accounting is something that we'll talk about as we go through the budget process. We have two main funds for the town. One is the general fund, one is the utility fund. And when I get to those items a little bit later, I'll tell you what's in each one of the funds. But the reason that you do fund accounting with typically nonprofits and government organizations is that the accounting is done differently, because in a private business and a for-profit business, you're looking at, did the business make a profit? And that's what you're really tracking, is did the business make any money? In our case, it's not a money-making enterprise or a for-profit enterprise, so the fund accounting is used to track where money comes from, and then to make sure that it's used for the right purpose. For example, someone pays their utility bill, that money should stay in the utility fund and help take care of expenses in the utility fund. if we get a grant, like the chief just mentioned, if we get a grant from the state that is designated for law enforcement, we have to be able to show that it was spent on the police department. And so the fund accounting allows you to keep the different types of funding that we're getting separated. It tracks the money, looks at the different operations in the organization, and keeps those things separate. That way, when the accountants come in each year, they can look at it and they can see that those monies were used where they were supposed to be and everything was tracked accordingly. The two main funds, as I mentioned, for the town are the general fund and the utility fund. So we will talk about the town budget, and that's how we normally talk about it all together, but there really are kind of two budgets within the town budget, one for the general fund and one for the utility fund. Before we get into some of those details, as a reminder, I think everyone's aware of this because everyone has seen the news over the past couple of years. Inflation is still high. From January 21 to January 22, so over about the last year, the consumer price index that you see oftentimes in the news showed about a 6% increase. Last year it was about 8.5%. There's a group called American and City County that actually have a municipal cost index, and they're trying to kind of replicate or have a data point that you can use for public entities and see what the inflation is like for the things that we purchase, like asphalt and PVC pipe and those sorts of things that we use every day. That number over the past year has gone up about 6%. Last year it had gone up about 12%. So the increases are better, but they're still there. And so that's going to be reflected in the budget that we talk about. For capital needs, those are the big dollar items that we see, like replacing water lines, repaving streets, the big dollar items, equipment that we have to buy. For the last 2 years, those of you that were here will remember that we had about $4.9 million. It was split between the 2 years, 2.45 each year for the past 2 years, that came down through the rescue plan money that helped out with a lot of our capital needs. We don't have those funds again this year. That money has gone away. So we have approximately $3.8 million in capital projects to fund. That number, as I said last year, is expected to continue to rise in the future, both due to inflation and just the fact that we have a backlog of capital projects that we need to take care of over the next 4 or 5 years. That $3.8 million is made up of $2.4 million in general fund projects and $1.4 million in utility fund projects. And I wanted to note that of that $3.8 million, about a third of that, a little over $1 million, is for a pumper truck for the fire department that was ordered last year. So that's already been approved, and it's shown in the capital budget for this year. Getting into the specific funds, the general fund, that includes everything from public safety, police department, fire department, public works, community development, general administration. Basically everything that's not part of the water and wastewater utility is in the general fund, is the easiest way to remember it. Right now, the revenues in the proposed budget that you have before you are projected at $8.74 million. When you get your books, you'll see some numbers, and there's some graphs in there to help you understand those. Property taxes make up about 14% of the general fund revenue. That number has actually been going down over time as some of the other revenues grow, like meals taxes and some of those, that percentage has gone down. Other local taxes, including sales tax, meals tax, the transient occupancy tax for the hotels and motels, make up a little over half of the general fund revenues. And then about a quarter of the general fund revenue comes from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Most of that money comes down for street maintenance and that sort of work. Expenditures in the general fund include everything from, as I mentioned, public safety, public works, general government, community development. The breakdown, again, this will be in your book, so you don't need to remember the numbers, but just to give you an overview. Public safety is about 35% of the general fund budget. Public works is 23%. General government and administration is about 14%, and then community development is 18%. As I mentioned, there's about $2.4 million in big dollar items or capital projects. On the personnel side, some good news to report. Our medical insurance rates are staying the same as last year. That's pretty rare if you follow that sort of thing, that they're not going up. I think last year it was about an 8% increase. That's actually more kind of normal or average than getting no increase. You'll see when you start going through the numbers that the total budgeted salaries in the proposed budget are up or recommended to increase increase about 7.5%, and that's to deal with the labor market that we're facing right now. It's the same thing that's being dealt with in the public and the private sector. Most of that is a market adjustment to the pay scale to try to make sure that we're in line and be able to attract new employees and keep the employees we have. That's on the non-law enforcement side. On the law enforcement side, we'll continue with the funding that council approved over the past year. So there were 2 phases to that new compensation plan for the law enforcement. Good news on that front is that the police department right now is fully staffed, and I didn't look it up or ask Chief for an exact number, but I think it's been a number of years since that's been true. So the funding that the council approved over the past year has definitely helped get the police department up to where they're fully staffed at this point. The proposed budget has a couple of changes as far as personnel. One of them is we've included a proposed grant writer position to help with getting some more grant funding for some of the projects we're trying to work on.
Thank
So
you.
That's in there. You're welcome. That's one that we've talked about before, and so we worked it into the budget. There are also, you'll see from last year to this year, the number of police officers that are included in the budget, the number of sworn police officers will be up by 2. It's not that we're actually asking for additional police officers to be approved. It's the same number. It's just that since we weren't fully staffed before, we weren't funding all of the positions because we didn't have that many officers. So the number that's been authorized by council has not changed. It's just that now that we're fully staffed, we've got to pay for all those officers. So that's something you'll see when you get in there. As we talk about every year when we do the budget, I think it's something that was going on way before I got here. It's important that we remember to invest in the most important resource that the town has, which is the staff that get things done, like we talked about the water department earlier and the police department. We want to make sure we have the best people we can have to provide the best services we can to the community. There are 3 kind of big picture items that we'll talk about as we go through the process. One of them is the budget does include a proposed increase of the meals tax from 5% to 6%. That generates an approximately $400,000 increase in additional revenue for the general fund. That change helps to lessen the burden on local taxpayers by having a revenue source that is separate and apart from the property tax, like I talked about. That number's been going down. This will help continue that trend of having property tax be a smaller share of the total revenue in the budget. The good thing about property taxes is that unlike local property taxes, meal taxes are paid by people who visit the town, and so it's a way to share the burden of some of the expenses that it costs to have the services in the community that we need. There's a proposal in there also for rate increases on the utility and solid waste side. The proposed rate increase for water and wastewater is 4%. That would generate approximately $90,000 for the utility fund. And just to give you a kind of a picture of what that looks like, right now the average residential customer pays about $41.64 on their water and wastewater bill. That's combined water and wastewater. That $41.64 with the proposed rate increase would go up to $43.31, or to break it down further, it would be an increase of $1.67 per month for the average residential customer. The increase that's being proposed also includes a solid waste rate increase. Those that have been on council for a few years will remember that we talked about this a couple of years ago. The solid waste rates don't cover the cost of the service at all, and so the increase that's been proposed is $2 per cart per month. For most residential customers, that really just means $2 because they only have 1 cart, but we do have some customers that have multiple carts, and so it's $2 per cart per month that's been proposed, and then $4 per cart per month for commercial. And the difference in the $2 and the $4 is because right now the commercial rate is right at double what the residential rate is, and so that would keep those at that same ratio. And then the third big item is that there's a proposed debt issuance of about $3.2 million that would be split between general and utility fund capital projects, as well as $412,000 from the utility capital fund that would help finance the proposed capital improvements. So we'll get into the details of what all those improvements are later, but I'm just giving you the big picture for now. To give everyone a kind of a quick snapshot of the town's debt situation. Right now, the town's legal debt capacity is about $50 million. And that's under state statute, there's an actual calculation you do to get to that number. And so it's about 50 million is the legal debt capacity that's allowed for a town that has the budget of our size. The outstanding debt for the town right now is about $5.5 million, or approximately 11% of the allowed debt level that the town can have. So just to give you an idea where we're at today. On the utility fund side, which again is the water and wastewater utility, revenues for 2024 are projected at 2.89 million. That's about 65% water, 35% wastewater. That's kind of how those fees break down. Again, proposed 4% rate increase is shown in the budget that you're going to receive tonight. Water, I think everyone kind of knows what goes into that. We'll talk about some of the details of the capital items, but in general, the water expenditures cover everything from the pipes in the ground to producing the water at the water plant, paying the people that do that work. On the wastewater side, same thing. There's costs associated with maintaining the lines that are in the ground that connects everyone's house to the system, and then there's costs that are associated with keeping the wastewater treatment plant up and running. And then as a final reminder for the schedule we're looking at and just kind of how we're going to get from point A to point B, you're going to get your draft proposed budget books tonight, and then next week we will have two meetings, both at 5 p.m. One is on Tuesday, one is on Thursday. That's the work sessions where we'll dive into these numbers a little bit more. Vincent will be here to help us go through those numbers. We can answer questions that council has, and then the plan is to go through those two meetings and then have the budget public hearing on Monday, May 1st at 6 p.m. That'll be an additional special meeting for council, and then Monday, May 8th at the regular council meeting would be the approval of the budget. So that's the basic game plan.
And no actions needed.
No actions needed tonight, and if council wants to discuss any of it, they can, but typically we try to have all those discussions in the work sessions.
Any comments? If not, we'll move.
Thank you for the meeting. I have a couple questions, but later.
Yes, sir. If no comments, we'll now move to the hearing of citizens, and we will start with Ellen Holland.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name again is Ellen Holland. I live at 410 Hilltop Drive here in Rocky Mount, and I work at the Free Clinic of Franklin County at 1171 Franklin Street, also here in Rocky Mount. Tonight, I do not actually have a complaint whatsoever. I'm here to say thank you for what you do. I really appreciate your willingness not only to run for public office, but to do all the things that need to be done, like coming to the meetings and poring for hours over your council agenda packet so that you'll understand the issues, and especially the new folks are finding that the town has many complicated facets, and there are issues going on in the town that you probably didn't even know were issues, or and have no frame of reference for. So I appreciate you doing that, and I also appreciate the town manager for doing what he does. I'm glad to be here tonight to hear about the budget. I know that my favorite department, I could talk for 20 minutes about how wonderful the town is and how much I appreciate all the employees in the town, but my favorite department tends to be Public Works, because I enjoy watching heavy equipment, and I secretly am late for work on Thursday mornings so I can watch the One-Armed Bandit pick up my trash. And I'm also secretly late for work on Mondays of bulk pickup day for the same reason. I'm glad to hear that there's a rate increase for the water and sewer department. I know working at the Free Clinic, the cost of chemicals has tripled during the time of COVID, and the cost of electricity and labor has also gone up. So it's not surprised at all that you need to make that difficult decision. And again, I appreciate being able to use water and sewer services, whether I'm at home or at work. Again, I have no complaint. I'm just here to say thank you for making this place a nice place for me to live, work, shop, and dine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Next, we have Brian Hochstein.
My name is Brian Hochstein. I live at 2403 Goldfield Court in Greensboro, North Carolina. Members of the Town Council, as you all know, the Harvester has been part of Rocky Mount's arts and entertainment scene for years. With the millions of dollars sunk into the venue, it can best be described as expensive, non-performing, and a success in name only. By any objective measure, its performance is mixed, and frankly, there is no clear vision or direction by the Town Council for the town to ever truly benefit from the massive investment. Today, the Harvester is woefully underutilized to the point of making it a distressed property. Its management, past and present, is too expensive and too detached from what is required to run a successful music venue in downtown Rocky Mount. As someone who is deeply invested in the downtown area, I believe it is time for the Town Council to consider a new approach with changes to the Harvester's management and operation, and to utilize its potential in becoming a vibrant and thriving part of our community and not remain a drag on public finances. I'm here today to propose that the town consider renting or selling the Harvester to our management team and financial backers. We have a clear vision for the future of what it's going to take to meet and exceed expectations and the resources to succeed in those endeavors. At a minimum, and based on publicly available metrics, we believe that in just the first year of our management, we can more than double the numbers in terms of shows, tickets, and concession sales. Our plan is plain, simple, and effective. Because we would pay the town to rent or buy the Harvester, we would shoulder the risk, not the taxpayer. Our model shifts from a managed venue where the town pays for a service by remaking the Harvester into an engine of economic development as originally planned. It cannot be overstated that our proposal will save the town of Rocky Mount hundreds of thousands of dollars each year and increase the remittance of meals taxes every month. The best part is that we would pay the town for this opportunity to operate the Harvester. By altering the business model to become more supply-sided and leveraging our expertise in management, entertainment, marketing, and finance, we'll be incentivized to put performance back into the Harvester Performance Center. Even just by hitting this year's numbers, the town would still save hundreds of thousands. I understand this proposal may sound unconventional, but we believe that the business model must change for the Harvester to succeed. We're proposing the right solution for the town of Rocky Mount, and more importantly, its taxpayers. I'm confident that with our team's expertise, talent, and resources, we can ensure that the Harvester becomes as vibrant as originally envisioned and promised over 10 years ago. I thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to your response to our proposal. Let's make the vision and promises of the Harvester a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to updates. First, we have the update on the potential purchase of 64.4 acres of land at Highway 40 and Highway 220. Mr. Wood will update us on that.
Council, a few weeks ago, the Town Council entered into a memorandum of understanding with the EDA to potentially purchase the land. And there's a number of conditions in there, and one of the conditions was to get a survey done, a boundary survey. Another condition was to do an environmental study on the property. Both of those, we've actually secured contractors to do both of those jobs, and so those are underway. Once the results are in, those will get reported to the council and to the EDA so that further discussion can take place.
And the next update we'll have is the Harvester Performance Center update. Mr. Moore will present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to come to you and give you an update on the Harvester Performance Center. At the beginning of my tenure here in the town almost 3 years ago, the Harvester, like every performance venue around the world, had just closed due to COVID. The music had figuratively and literally stopped. As the new manager of the LLCs, the town had two requests relating to the Harvester. When we come out of COVID and reopen the Harvester, we need a more efficient operation and to stay within the budget allocated. Those continue to be the town's requests to this day and my guiding principles. Attending shows at the Harvester, I hear many great stories about the experiences had by concert goers. a recent interaction with two couples attending a show on a Thursday reminded me of the impact the Harvester has on our town. They had taken Thursday and Friday off to celebrate their kids' graduation from Lord Botetourt High School. They came into town early to check into their bed and breakfast nearby. After checking in, they walked around downtown looking for a place to eat dinner. When the first restaurant they tried was packed and had a waiting list, they walked to another restaurant nearby to have a nice meal before walking to the Harvester for the show. In our conversation, they mentioned how great the music sounded in the venue and commented that they would be back for other shows. I have had other experiences like that at shows, and I know Robert has had them as well. These scenarios are what the town envisioned with the Harvester Project. Out-of-town guests coming to town early, patronizing businesses, attending a show, staying overnight, and likely eating breakfast and getting gas in town before they went home the next day. That is quintessential public sector economic development. I wanted to start my comments off tonight with a reminder of what the Harvester has done for our town and the economic engine that it is. As a matter of fact, in a recent Franklin County Economic Development survey of county residents, the Harvester was listed as the number one place to take new visitors to when visiting not just Rocky Mount, but Franklin County. Town contributions allocated to the Harvester by the town are expenses, much like funding we put into public safety, the farmers market, or public works. They make our town a great place to live, work, and play, and they help to generate economic opportunities. There are expenses in having a police department. There are expenses involved in street maintenance and clean drinking water. There are expenses in running a farmer's market, and there are expenses in having a music venue. Here are some stats from the current fiscal year at the Harvester. 30 shows to date have occurred out of 51 scheduled. Total attendees, 8,478. 1/3 of our shows are sellouts, 10 out of 30. Average attendance per show is 273. That is a 66% increase from 180 in 2019 pre-COVID. For the year, we averaged $2,315 profit per show. Gross ticket sales, $405,110. Concessions and merchandise sales, $64,020. Talent cost, or the cost to bring the bands in, for 30 shows so far, $234,157. The Harvester, sitting at the eastern gateway to the Crooked Road, is a music staple in the region, drawing concert goers from around the country. It is an economic development engine, and similar to engines like a sports complex, civic center, or theater, the investment in a live music venue here in Rocky Mount is doing exactly what council envisioned 10 years ago, creating economic development and tourism opportunities and spurring growth. We know that local businesses adjust their hours of operation based on shows at the Harvester to capitalize on the influx of tourists to the town. Council's vision to create these opportunities allows the Harvester to turn them into the growth you see in town. The Harvester has also helped put Rocky Mount on the map all over the state. No matter when or where town staff attend conferences, when asked where we are from, and upon our reply of Rocky Mount, someone usually responds, "Oh yeah, that's where the Harvester is at." We should all beam with pride over this downtown catalyst project and anchor that town council developed in our business district that has created a domino effect of business development around it for nearly a decade. Imagine that. The town government strategically investing taxpayer funds to acquire and develop a parcel of property to spur business development for decades in our community. A surprise to few in our community, but not an novel idea to most. To help illustrate this point, I'll offer this. I sat through an economic development presentation just this past Friday in a town of similar size to us, just 30 minutes away. Their town council had been involved in no less than 6 catalyst projects, big and small, like the Harvester. In our recent land acquisition, where they helped set the stage for the private sector to partner with them to bring a development project to life. The town manager, along with a local developer, were presenting at a conference to administrators like me. The name of their session was appropriately titled, "The Power of Partnerships and Vision." What you all have done and are doing to spur growth and development happens in various forms and communities all around our region and state. They are economic development principles that have been proven to work over and over. Kudos to you for having the willingness to proactively work to shape development in our town. Beyond the economic impact of live events to our area, these events also contribute to the overall quality of life in our region and help attract and retain businesses and talent. When we work to improve our tier status or business readiness rating in our industrial park to make it shovel ready for future clients, it's to create economic development opportunities. In that same vein, an attraction like the Harvesters creates those same opportunities. A little more than halfway through our show schedule, the more than 8,000 people that visited our town so far this year because of the Harvester represent opportunities. 8,000 opportunities to patronize our restaurants, 8,000 opportunities to stay in our hotels and bed and breakfasts, 8,000 opportunities to visit our local businesses, 8,000 opportunities to increase our tax base, 8,000 opportunities to see what our town has to offer, 8,000 opportunities to tell tourists why they should come back for our farmers market, our parks, the Crooked Road, the Homegrown Music Series, come home to a Franklin County Christmas, court days, cruise in, breweries, distilleries, festivals, and parades, and maybe even move their families back here or retire here. With these opportunities, we help set the stage for our local businesses to reap the benefits. Since the Harvester reopened in September of 21, we have worked with Midwood Entertainment to build a venue schedule that would help us more efficiently run the Harvester, while also keeping a strong stable of musicians flowing through it. Keep in mind, each individual artist that comes through may not appeal to everyone, but the goal is to attract different groups and different demographics while filling seats. Some people like Robert Earl Keen and some like Ace Frehley. This is reflected in the average attendance increase from 180 in 2019 to the current average attendance of 273, an increase of 66%. Pair that with our average profit on shows of more than $2,000 this year, and those are positive economic signs that the changes we have implemented are bearing fruit in the form of increased attendance and a more efficient operation. We are constantly evaluating each band that comes through to see if they're a fit for the venue and will draw fans to the venue. In that evaluation, our first thought is not, do I know this band? Instead, we look at attendance numbers. Don't get me wrong, we strive to marry a well-known artist with our budget and attendance, but that is not our first focus. The reality is, the bigger the artist, the harder it is to make the numbers work with a venue that has a seating capacity of 422. In public sector economic development, we not only look at what is best for the venue, but what will draw people to our community to stay a while, spend their money, and go back home in another community. That can be a sharp contrast to a private venue that only cares about what is best for their venue and their venue alone. For example, a private venue would almost definitely serve food and sell other items to maximize profit. But in the case of the Harvester, we want patrons to dine and shop elsewhere in town. We have also created reserved seating for our shows that allows concert goers the opportunity to get into town to patronize our businesses and not worry about arriving early just to stand in a line stretched around the venue. We strive to pair the economic impact created by the venue with financial efficiency in running it. I'd also like to address two common requests that I hear out in the community: more local music and more community events. For those that wish to have more local music in the Harvester, we share those sentiments. The town started the Homegrown Music Series last year to showcase local talent. The series has primarily been held at the Depot. Given the success of the series, the 2023 installments of the event are being held at the Harvester quarterly throughout the year. The Twin Creeks String Band played there in January with great success, and our most recent installment of the music series played at the Harvester this past Saturday with the local band Wrastlin' Brabson and the Franklin County Ramblers performing to a near full house, complete with our own dance floor. For those that wish for the Harvester to be more of a community space, we also share those sentiments. To that end, we are hosting the Franklin County High School prom there this year, actually this month. The school system also held a band recital there last year. We've held baby showers and the annual cruise-in kickoff dinner there this year as well. Last year, we also opened the Harvester for the annual Come Home to a Franklin County Christmas, where visitors could walk through, have a seat, hear holiday music being played on stage, and compete in a singing competition hosted by Franklin Heights Church and the Community Partnership. I'll close with this. Throughout Virginia, you will find towns that thrive and towns that just exist. I have worked in communities with both. We are fortunate to live in a town that thrives with a lot to offer and even more opportunities to grow. Over the years, Town Council has time and again looked for opportunities to spur development in town. You have stepped out of your comfort zone at strategic moments in the town's history and took calculated risk in order to build a town that thrives and not just exists. The Harvester was one of those times, and it has been a major catalyst for growth ever since. Our recent land purchase will prove to be another major catalyst for growth. Like every locality, we have challenges to meet, and we have a few naysayers that can't see beyond their next social media post. The town and the Harvester have great momentum, and I look forward to working with you to continue that success. Thank you for your continued vision for the town and the support of the Harvester. I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, before we move to the closed session, we have two announcements to make. One, on April 25th, we'll be having another business town hall meeting that will also include Ferrum College and their student council, and I believe their president will be here. So that's April 25th at 6? 7 o'clock. At 7? Thank you. So that's something to look forward to on April 25th. There'll be some things going out on the internet from Mr. Bernard. Second, we have the Rotary raffle, and Mr. Moore, if you want to quickly get up there and explain that so people know what that's about.
Real quick, Rotary Club of Rocky Mount is their project this year for the July 4th festival is the new dog park that'll go in over off of Technology Drive. As part of Rotary, I have tickets to sell, and I encourage council, and I'll make the same presentation to EDA later this month. There are $50 tickets that are in support of that project, and I have tickets, so I wanted to make a plug for that and encourage you to buy one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, we have a closed session this evening. In order to enter into a closed meeting, the motion will have to be made to move into a closed session under Virginia Code section cited as such. Section 2.2-3711A.1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. Section 2.2-3711A.3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. And Section 2.2-3711A.7, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Now, do I have a motion to go into the closed meetings under the cited codes?
So moved under each cited code.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for attending the meeting. After closed session, council will resume in the council chambers. Thank you.